Alright everyone, welcome back to another episode of Triad Expeditions, and in this episode we are going to be installing some electrical applications to this. We're going to be installing a cutoff switch and a bus bar. So I kind of got started already because my GoPro mysteriously ran down. You can tell I'm not a huge fan of the GoPro. I'm hoping that the Hero 9 will be better. So what we have here, and let's take it over to the car, is we have a custom built plate that I made to go into the center console back here, and as I mentioned previously, we probably won't really be using the back seats all that much. I mean, we still want them to be usable, but what we can do here is we can put the cutoff switch here in the console, and I'm going to try to get this in here. I wanted to show it to you out of the car, but I want to show it to you now in the car without any more interruptions. So alright, so anyways, there we go. Terrible camera work, but there it is. So what I did is I cut a 2-inch hole here into the side of the center console, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to also put some wrap, some loom around these wires before I go ahead and cinch this down. And I'm debating on also putting my other wires to the cutoff directly from the cutoff, but I haven't decided whether I'm going to do that for sure or not. So what we got going over here is we have a very heavy-duty bus bar, and I think it's like rated at 300 amps or something like that. But you'll be able to find this on Amazon. It's pretty easy to find. Took the original terminal here off of the battery. We had the negative, of course, unhooked. Anytime that you're working around electrical, you want to do that. And the plan is this will be where we take off our rear fuse block, and you'll see that here in a second, along with our relay and any other load that we want to basically function or carry off the back of the vehicle. So that's the current plan, and I wanted to show you this. I'll show you here in a minute when I get more things installed and get things hooked back up, and kind of show you just generally how it works. Alright, so moving right along here, I'll show you some of the handiwork so far. So there is our cutoff switch, and we'll put that to the test here in a second, just to make sure everything's working correctly. But yeah, it's gone too. But anyways, so like I said, that is basically a custom cover for that center console. Now, as far as the cutoff switch and the location of it, so this is a Blue Sea system. Don't go cheap on your electrical components. Blue Sea is well proven to be excellent. It is rated at 900 amps capability also. Going down here underneath, so what I ended up doing is I ended up cutting another 2-inch hole out the back and ran the wires out the back of the center console there. Definitely have enough access there to run my winch cables directly to the cutoff switch if I want to. Obviously I have different options, but I think that would be good because it won't have to leave the tunnel itself. So, and also that way the winch won't have any power when it's cut off, and everything is rated to definitely handle what the winch is going to throw at it. Winches for like these ATVs, from everything I'm seeing, they can pull at surge amperage draw up to almost 200 amps. That's pretty substantial. Realistically, I think it's probably more like 150 max is what you're probably looking at. Some of those numbers might have been maybe for some larger vehicle-based, normal off-road vehicle-based winches, but better to go big on the winch cabling and everything else. So the battery cable over there, that's actually 6 gauge. So both of those wires that I bought off of Amazon at the cut amount Both of those are 6 gauge, and then I was pleasantly surprised to see that both of them were made in the USA. So they were both wires that was USA sourced wires. So it definitely supersedes. That's about the same gauge as the main wire there that you see. There's our bus block in place with the cover. So basically we took the terminal and took it directly up to the bus bar, and then that other wire is the output wire coming from the cutoff switch. So we still have like 2 different lugs there that are completely vacant. One of those will be for our fuse block that we're going to mount up there next to the onboard charger, and because well, here's a couple things I didn't really fully explain myself. So there's wires that run across here. All right, so you don't want to use this space to drill into. Down here is safe around the box, but definitely always check your clearances. Don't take my word for it. But as far as a flush mount cutoff switch, I mean, there's really not. Yeah, I could have put it up there and still been able to reach it behind, but really that space I'm going to use for the fuse block, the relay, the circuit breaker, that type of thing. So that's going to be pretty crowded up there pretty fast. And like I said, we really won't use this. The only thing I'll have to make sure is that there's no kids that are riding back here, I guess, and decide they're going to flip the switch. That would definitely be a bad thing. So that is a consideration. If you have children or have children that ride with you commonly, that might not be the best setup. But you know, these do kind of take some space, and the wires are big. So where the wires we're going to run, I might have to trim my panel out there just a little bit at the corner where the wires kind of sneak their way around the panel, but that'd be super easy to do that. So I didn't want the big wires, the big cables, the big 6 gauge cables kind of working their way down. So this was kind of the best way to kind of have everything as compact as possible, make use of that you know, center console there. And I might, you know, I'll probably end up mounting my right here, I'll probably end up mounting my resetting push button circuit breaker there for the winch. I ordered I think I ordered a 200 amp one to flush mount right there, and then I'll run the wires from the heavy duty 6 gauge inside here and hook up to the cutoff switch, and then run that cabling forward through the tunnel. So yeah, I think that's going to work out pretty good. And I can still take this cover off, just, you know, 6 or 5 stainless steel screws that hold that down, so that won't be a problem either. The relay, the way I'm going to do this, and I'll say everything kind of probably twice or 3 times, just so that way if you didn't catch it the first time, you'll get it. But we know that there is a switched voltage that I can tap off there at that location right here. And so actually I'm going to go ahead, instead of using the ground, I'm going to use that ground post, and I'm going to run my 3-wire. I'm going to run basically my 3-wire 8 gauge, I think it is, and run my 3-wire 8 gauge from there all the way through the tunnel up to my fuse block. So I think I have 8 gauge, maybe 10 gauge, so I could really get away with 10 gauge since it's just the ground and the signal. So, but you know, all these different wire sizes and fuses and ratings, that's on you. Don't you know, you got to do your own research to be comfortable with it, because you know, potentially all of it can cause a fire if anything gets overloaded. So you definitely want to check that out. So all right, well, looks like our battery's already topped off. For those of you that didn't watch our previous video where we had installed that, I'll just show you real quick. What we did was we used a Noco Genius onboard charger. I think it's the 2D, yeah, the 2D flush mount, little Velcro strap that holds it down securely, and then we did a shore power connection here with the Noco shore power, so we can just plug in the unit and keep the battery nice and topped off at all times. So the next thing that we're going to do in this video is we're going to flush mount that fuse block. Alright, I wanted to show you a couple of the components that we're going to be using here on the back. just pretty much normal stuff that you would see when you add a fuse panel. This is the Blue Sea fuse box. One thing that I should have ordered differently is I should have got the fuse block that actually has the ground terminal built in. So be aware of that. I mean, this is obviously a smaller, more compact design. I ordered just basically a 6 terminal with 1/4 inch stud at one end, bus bar, ground bus bar that I'm going to end up putting up here, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because what I can do is I can end up jumpering from that bus bar also to our relay and that type of thing. So it'd probably come in handy, and I'm sure it'd come in handy maybe to find a ground for other things in the future. So this is the circuit protector, the thermal circuit protector that you can reset manually. And then basically the idea of this is going to be from the positive bus bar that we installed. As you've seen previously in the video, we will go up to this. This will give us our circuit protection for all of the load, the fuse panel, and then that will go to our relay, and then we will get an ignition hot source into our relay here to one of the pins. One of these will be ground, and then we'll have our out. Don't take my word, I don't know which one it is, so it could be either one of them. This is 200 amps. I just went big with it because I wanted it to definitely be heavy duty and be able to, you can kind of go heavy on those, you know, just so that they're made appropriately to handle the load. This fuse panel, obviously if we're going to generally use 15 amp fuses for most loads, with maybe an exceptional 20 amp here or there for something, you know, a little bit bigger, maybe lights or something like that, you know, add up that, it's still, you know, it's going to be about a 120 total load, and that's the fuses. I doubt it if it'd come anywhere near that. So the whole box is rated at 100 amps per block, so you know, that's you know, it's built plenty good, so no problems there. Wanted to show you these in the better light, so that way when we do have everything installed, you know, it'll make more sense to you. If you're not aware, you know, a relay, the benefit of this is that all of these loads will be not able to get juice. Obviously we have our cutoff switch that we can definitely, at the end of the day or end of the ride, we can flip that switch and that kills the power to the battery completely. But if we don't want to mess with that cutoff switch, maybe we just roll up to somewhere, you don't want this fuse box to have the ability to draw and have like a parasitic draw on your system and end up coming from, you know, maybe a hike or something and coming back to the rig and finding that, you know, a fan was running or somebody had their cell phone plugged in or whatever it might be that had ran the battery down overnight or while you were in camp. So the relay is a secondary cutoff mechanism to basically kill the fuse panel when the ignition is turned off, whenever the key is removed. So that is definitely the right way to do it, and that is really the intent of that ignition stud in the tunnel, is for you to use that just for a signal, basically an ignition signal voltage. It's not really for you to like put a hot load to that, because it, you know, looking at it, it's a very small gauge wire. So just keep that in mind, kind of educate yourself, you know, as far as what I'm talking about there on the Maverick X3 with the ignition stud there in the tunnel. So alright, I'll show you. The next thing you'll see is basically these components installed, and then we'll start hooking some loads up to them. Alright, let's talk about some of the things that we have been able to get done here. I do apologize that this information is not better organized. It kind of is one of those things where I'm just showing you glimpses of what has happened and what I've been able to do, so that it can give you some ideas of how you might want to do your setup. So we know, we got the cutoff switch. We have the bus bar there, the positive bus bar. And then from that bus bar, and utilizing the same stud because it's nowhere near overloaded, we have went up to a 100 amp waterproof circuit protector. We can basically reset that if it trips. No fuses or anything else like that. So it goes up to a relay that we are going to wire in, and that's where we're kind of at because we did run out of 1/4 inch hold terminals that would go on the 6 gauge wire there. So we need to make the connection here from the relay to our fuse panel, and so that's the next step. And then also we still are missing a ground bus to put right here, so that will be here tomorrow, and we'll kind of pick up from there. But I wanted to show you where we're at. I'll tell you that the crimp connectors and a hydraulic crimper is pretty awesome, and I'm kind of wondering why I didn't go ahead and purchase one before, because I've definitely bought enough of these custom length cables, like in 4 gauge and 6 gauge and whatnot, that I could have easily paid for it by now. So just something to consider. If it's in your budget, it may be advantageous for you to go ahead and invest in one of those. And it's a pretty simple tool to use, and it really find it to be pretty awesome because you can do everything on the fly. You're not measuring and then waiting a couple days for you to get your custom length cables, even though that has worked out pretty good in the past for me. So where we're at here is we are at the 3-lug bus bar that does basically a ground, it does a positive continuous, and then the bottom is the accessory or ignition only feed. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap off of that, and we're going to go to a 30 amp circuit protector. We're going to go into this terminal and out this terminal, and use some 12 gauge, since this is not a very, as you can see, I think that's about 12 gauge that they're using there. But I don't want to run a lead, and we're going to have 2 wire. It's going to be a 12-2. So we're going to tap off the ground because that relay requires a ground also, and we're going to take the ignition 12 volts. But I'm going to run the 12 volt ignition to the circuit protector that I've installed here. That's 30 amps. Because I do not want to chance the fact that if something was to wear through and short out, that it could cause a dead short and cause a fire. So everything should be fused from its source, this being the source, and so that way that long run all the way back to that relay, if something was to happen to that wire, even though we are going to loom it also just as extra protection. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but so that's what we're doing. And then, but let me mention something real quick, just that might be very helpful for you. I have a feeling this is going to be a 2-part video. Some of this initial rear fuse installation video is going to be maybe 2 parts, and then we'll do the front, and we'll do the switch pros in another video. So that's kind of how I think I'll break it down. But what I was getting to was, so the wire loom here, which is pretty much what the automotive industry uses. It's pretty much the standard, as you can see that it's used throughout the car here from Can-Am. And the one thing that I do, which is more, and I'm kind of surprised they don't do it too, but I guess it's because of expense. The automotive industry, they actually do wrap it with duct tape, with electrical tape, that is. And a lot of folks don't realize that that's electrical tape that's on there, but it's quality electrical tape. So definitely do not cheap out when it comes to electrical tape. Use the 3M, not a sponsor, Super 33 You can find it on Amazon. I actually got 66 feet of it today for $3, so that was quite the deal. That was like a special deal for some reason. $3 shipped to the house for 66 feet of it. So I went ahead and bought another roll because you can go through it pretty quickly whenever you're wrapping all of your looms in it, and that's something I recommend. You know, you start your wrap on the wire itself, and then you go over the loom, so it kind of seals up the loom from getting water and dirt and everything else in there. It still will, because you'll miss somewhere on your wrap, and then it will get in there, but it's gonna be negligible, and you know, shouldn't affect things. So yeah, all right. Well, so yeah, let's get this relay wire ran up to the relay since we're waiting on those lugs. All right, so it is time to summarize this installation. We're going to categorize this as the rear electrical system, and that's pretty much what the title of the video is going to be. So I'm going to ramble on here for a little bit. I just want to, if you stuck with me this long, I just figure it's worth explaining, and you'll probably want some of the information to kind of just do a complete overview of the system as it's installed. So what we'll do is we'll start at the source. So here's the cutoff switch, and I do want to explain the cutoff switch a little bit more, because some of you might be thinking, okay, well, yeah, I've never really had a use for that. You know, I'm good that my draws or my loads, that is, are not parasitic, and I've never come out to a dead battery, or you know, always take my key out or whatever that might be. So this actually serves more than just a preventative of a dead battery. It actually is somewhat of a security device in the fact that if somebody doesn't exactly notice, it's one more step, put it that way. They literally have to educate themselves on your vehicle as they're trying to steal it. And you know, thieves aren't necessarily the smartest people in the world, so you know, whatever. Maybe it's one more thing that delays them to get your vehicle started by having this cutoff switch, and it's not in a normal spot. And I might even try to make it even more better, easier said than done. Never mind. So anyways, it's been a long day and it's cold, so yeah, you can laugh at me. I enjoy that, so it's no problem whatsoever. But yeah, maybe like a cover. Okay, I'll just put it that way. Like maybe a cover even would be nice. I can maybe even use the box that it came with to put over top of it. So so this is cutoff switch. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on. So it's in the on position now. As you can see, our onboard charger is topping off at all times, so it's strobing red there. And I actually did a function test with this, so that's what kind of drew the battery down just a little bit as it was sitting here. So let's go back up to the front. I want to go over this again, and that's where I have the light right now. By the way, today's project was brought to you by Yellow Springs Captain Stardust. It's an excellent saison that they make, and if you've never tried a saison, it may not be for you, but you should broaden your horizons and actually try one. It is a bit of a sour beer, so if that's not your thing, saisons are definitely not going to be your thing. But all right, back on task here. So like I said, the bottom terminal there is the ignition, and we tapped off that. We went to a 30 amp circuit protector. We then went from that and went all the way to the back up to our relay, and I'll show you where that comes in. And then we went ahead, because we were using two 12 gauge wires for this, we went ahead and tapped into the ground, since it was handy that both these 12 gauge wires were a 12-2 setup, so it was black and red together. We protected that with wire loom, and then came back here, routed it through the tunnel, zip tied it, came up, and it plugs into the bottom of the relay there. So that's our two wires that came from the 3-lug terminal there. So that comes on with the ignition. that will turn the relay on. All right, and then starting back over down here from the battery, you have a wire, a heavy gauge, 6 gauge wire that goes up to the cutoff switch. From the cutoff switch is the output, and that goes to this DC, very heavy DC bar there that we can tap into. The original terminal that went to the battery is now hooked up to that, so everything that the vehicle was normally used to seeing is hooked up. We have our NOCO charger hooked up there, and then off of the same lug, because this thing is super heavy duty and that's not an issue whatsoever, we are going up to a 100 amp circuit breaker. From that 100 amp circuit breaker, we go to the relay there. From the output of the relay, or the load, or the auxiliary they call it sometimes, we go to a Blue Seas fuse box, and we have 2 loads on it currently. We have the particle separator and the license plate, and that's all we have. So we have 4 more spots for like a radio or anything else that we want to put on there. So, and just to reiterate, this does not come on unless the ignition is on. So I think most of you will understand that. Now, you may elect to get a Blue Sea Systems fuse box that actually has the ground bus in it. If you want to mount it here, you can do that. It's not much bigger. I ended up having to buy a ground bus here that's separate, and we ran a little bit longer than it needed to be, but I think I'm glad that I did that, because I think I'm going to take this cable off and actually split it here in the middle. Sorry about the light there. And maybe put a negative bus, just like this positive one, right beside it, so that way I can just tie in all the grounds there. Now, some of you might be saying, like, wow, that's pretty involved. Why would you go to the trouble to basically do all this? In my opinion, this is the right way to do it. If you're going to be running, rock lights, being that this, whatever accessory that's on the back half of the car, this is where you're going to tie those in, and they're going to be fused. If you end up blowing a fuse on the trail, this is going to be super easy to get to, right behind the seat. I might end up putting maybe like a aluminum bar across there to protect it. I might actually end up modifying the seat so it doesn't slide back as far by putting a couple bolts in the rail to limit it. The seat is not that important to me, as far as, because we will not have passengers that often. This is more important, but I do believe I still will have plenty of room behind the seat, and that it won't be damaged, but I'll verify that when I get the seat put in. The seatbelt straps will go in, no problem. So the retractable 4-point harness. So yeah, pretty happy with the result. What I'm going to show you next is I'm just going to basically turn the car on and kind of let you, see how everything is running. You'll hear the particle separator kick on, and that's about it. I think I had some more things in my head that I was going to share with you, regarding this, as far as the details goes, or things to consider. So let's go in the car here. I got the steering wheel removed. Makes it pretty nice. You got that steering wheel removed, and then travel with me here. Grab the Astro pneumatics light, and as you can hear, I'll turn the microphone around here so you can hear it. The car's not started, and that is the particle separator running, and it will only be running because of the fact that, once again, this fuse panel is only live because that relay with the ignition signal that we tapped off of. So as soon as the car is turned off, that fuse block goes dead and all your loads go dead. We will be putting to kind of wrap this up and not have this video extremely long. The next things that you're going to see is you're going to see the switch pros installed. I think that's the next thing I'm going to put in, because I want to kind of get some dome lights going in here to kind of help me work a little bit. And where we are going to put that, after doing some research today and not really finding, they actually make a switch pro that goes on the Assault Industries steering wheel, and I might look into that a little bit more. I just think maybe there's like a coiled cable, or I don't know. If any of you guys know about that, definitely comment below. That would be pretty sweet to have that switch pro mounted right there on the steering wheel, because you know I can hit the buttons, turn lights on and off without even looking down. But if that ends up not working out, we're going to end up locating that switch pro right there below the start stop button, and it'll be more accessible when the car is shifted into like the drive position. So but you'll still be able to get to it, no problem. So right below there, probably do some handiwork with some plastic, and maybe make like a little plate or something like that. Maybe even go super crazy and maybe enclose that whole compartment there, so that we can maybe locate the fuse. That might actually, that's probably a really good spot right there to put the fuse panel. So yeah, that might end up being the I know they make some rugged radios, you know, boxes that you can put around there that are aluminum and stuff like that are pre-made, but we just we don't have any intention on putting that radio equipment in here. So I haven't really been able to find one that doesn't have the cutouts already done, and I think it'd be easy enough, especially for the price. I can definitely cut some plastic and fab some plastic in there that will close that in perfectly. So maybe back it with some aluminum and have like a carbon fiber look on the outside. So definitely let me know what you think of all that in the comments. I appreciate everybody watching. This was a long one. Hopefully you got some things out of it. And definitely let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified of our future videos coming out.